On the 22nd of June 2025, in a historic escalation, the United States launched precision strikes on Iran's three major nuclear enrichment sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Washington hailed it as a, quote, spectacular military success. Tehran decried it as a violation of international law that will have everlasting consequences. Why did Iran pursue nuclear capabilities? How far had they progressed? And how badly have they now been set back? What does U.S. involvement mean for the Middle East, Europe, and the world? And crucially, where do we go from here? This is Nexus-Feed Deep Dive. Hold on tight as we explore and answer these and other questions. Iran has long insisted that its nuclear program is peaceful, protected under its rights as a non-nuclear weapon state in the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT. But the international community has never been fully convinced. Early investigations into Iran's Ahmad project in the early 2000s suggested that Iran had flirted with weaponization. Although Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei had issued a fatwa declaring nuclear weapons un-Islamic, Western analysts see that more as a political position than a hard security constraint. The fatwa can be reinterpreted or quietly ignored if national survival is perceived to be at stake. By mid-2025, Iran had amassed over 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity. That's well short of the 90% required for weapons-grade fissile material, but still extremely dangerous. Experts say that stockpile, if further enriched, could yield enough material for multiple nuclear bombs in just a matter of weeks. Fordow, an underground facility built into a mountain, was designed to withstand even military bombardment, signaling Iran's commitment to protect its program under any scenario. Iran claims its goals are civilian energy and medical research, but enrichment levels, concealment of facilities, and a pattern of non-cooperation with the IAEA have fueled global skepticism. In the background, a regional Cold War with Israel, a bitter legacy of sanctions, and a desire for strategic autonomy from the West. The latest crisis started dramatically on June 13th, when Israel launched a coordinated campaign of drone strikes, cyber sabotage, and air assaults targeting Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure. The campaign, known by Israeli insiders as Operation Rising Lion, struck Natanz, Fordow, the Parchin military complex, and numerous IRGC facilities. At Natanz, the site of Iran's largest uranium enrichment activities, Israeli drones reportedly damaged the pilot fuel enrichment plant, where about 1,700 centrifuges were operating at 60% enrichment levels. Some analysts suggest underground cascades may have survived, but the damage is still significant. Fordow was also struck, despite its deep-buried architecture, and sustained at least partial damage to surface and possibly subsurface systems. The Israeli campaign went beyond nuclear targets. It also hit missile production sites, IRGC outposts, and parts of the Arak heavy water reactor complex. Iran responded with anti-air defense fire and warnings, but did not retaliate immediately. Many analysts believed Iran was waiting for international response and bracing for wider confrontation. According to one Middle East analyst, this was not an all-out war, but a calculated attempt to degrade Iran's capabilities without triggering uncontrollable escalation. Still, it was clear that Israel had both the intelligence and technical ability to punch deep into Iran's nuclear shield. On June 22nd, the United States joined the fight. President Trump ordered airstrikes using B-2 stealth bombers and high-yield bunker buster munitions on three of Iran's most critical nuclear sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Fordow, widely seen as the most hardened facility, was reportedly struck with at least 6 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrator bombs. Natanz and Isfahan, both involved in enrichment and fuel fabrication, were also hit with multiple precision munitions. The Pentagon claims all aircraft returned safely and that the operation was surgical. U.S. officials stated that the attacks were aimed specifically at nuclear infrastructure and that civilian casualties were avoided. The International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed that radiation levels around the sites remain normal, indicating no accidental contamination or meltdown. A military analyst noted that no other country besides the United States possesses the combination of air power, logistics, and intelligence capabilities to strike multiple underground nuclear facilities in a single coordinated operation. The message was unmistakable. If diplomacy fails, Washington is willing and able to use force. So, how much damage did the US and Israel actually do? Iran claims the sites were partially evacuated ahead of the strikes and that the damage is limited. However, Western analysts strongly disagree. Satellite imagery and intercepted communications suggest that much of the infrastructure, especially in Natanz and Isfahan, was rendered inoperable. Experts estimate that the strikes could delay Iran's enrichment program by at least 12 to 18 months. Damaged centrifuges, destroyed infrastructure, and the need to recalibrate or rebuild supply chains all contribute to this setback. More critically, Iran's sense of impunity has been shattered. Until now, Tehran may have believed that hiding facilities deep underground would shield them from attack. That assumption has now been invalidated. While Iran still retains the technical knowledge and human capital to restart its program, the loss of physical infrastructure and the global political cost of rebuilding openly will weigh heavily. One nuclear policy expert put it this way: the US and Israel didn't just destroy uranium, they destroyed time. And in the nuclear game, time is leverage. Unsurprisingly, Tehran is furious. Within hours of the US strikes, Iran launched more than 40 ballistic and cruise missiles toward Israel. Several landed in Tel Aviv and Haifa, injuring civilians and damaging infrastructure. Israel's Iron Dome and David's sling systems intercepted many but not all. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the U.S. strike a violation of international law and promised consequences that will echo for generations. There is growing concern that Iran may activate its proxy network, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shia militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, and even operatives in Syria and Gaza. Already, Houthi leaders have threatened U.S. ships in the Red Sea. In Iraq, American bases have gone into full lockdown mode amid fears of retaliation. Domestically, Iranian hardliners are calling for a withdrawal from the NPT, a full militarization of the nuclear program, and mass mobilization. Supreme Leader Khamenei has not spoken publicly yet, but his next move could set the tone for the region. The broader implications of the strike are only beginning to take shape. In the Middle East, the fear of escalation is real. Lebanon's Hezbollah may feel compelled to act. Syria could once again become a staging ground for regional proxy warfare. Iraq, already a battleground for US-Iran tensions, is bracing for internal unrest. In the Gulf, reactions are mixed. Countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, long wary of Iranian power, quietly support the strikes. But they also fear that escalation could spill over into their territories. Oil prices surged nearly 15% in the hours after the US strike, raising alarm bells in global markets. European countries, already energy-strapped, are scrambling to secure reserves. Europe is also diplomatically vulnerable. EU leaders have called for restraint and expressed concern that the nuclear deal, already on life support, is now officially dead. France and Germany worry that further escalation could send waves of refugees toward Europe and destabilize their domestic politics. Globally, this event marks a precedent. A nuclear power has struck another state's nuclear infrastructure openly and preemptively. The non-proliferation regime already fraying may never look the same again. In Washington, reactions are divided. Trump's allies applaud the strikes as decisive. His critics say he acted without congressional approval and may have violated United States law. Some warn this could expand into a regional war that the United States isn't prepared to fight. At the United Nations, Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged restraint, calling for immediate de-escalation and a return to diplomacy. Middle East scholars say this is a dangerous turning point. Iran may retaliate through asymmetric warfare, sparking a broader conflict that engulfs Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and beyond. Nuclear experts agree that Iran has been set back, but caution that destruction of facilities doesn't eliminate intent. Iran still has its scientists, its stockpile of knowledge, and its geopolitical motivations. There are a few potential paths forward. In a best-case scenario, Iran absorbs the blow and returns to negotiations under international pressure. Temporary halts to enrichment might be exchanged for sanction relief. Proxy groups de-escalate. A new diplomatic framework, perhaps involving China, Russia, and regional stakeholders, could emerge. In the worst-case scenario, Iran exits the NPT entirely, restarts enrichment in secret, and mobilizes its proxies to attack United States and Israeli assets. The region could slide into a new war, multi-front, asymmetric, and bloody. Much will depend on Iran's next move and the international community's response. The United States strike sends a message not just to Iran, but to the rest of the world, especially North Korea. Pyongyang may view this as proof that unless you have a full, deliverable nuclear arsenal, you remain vulnerable to preemption. That could encourage them to accelerate missile development, increase underground shielding, and double down on deterrence. Alternatively, some analysts argue that North Korea may be more open to diplomacy, recognizing that a first strike scenario now carries much higher risks. But the likely outcome is this. For countries flirting with nuclear programs, the United States strike on Iran reinforces a hard truth. You're either all the way in or out. Anything in between invites annihilation. Where we were, Iran was advancing its nuclear program, inching toward breakout capability. Israel was watching nervously. The United States was debating involvement. Where we are, a massive coordinated strike has set Iran's program back, but the threat of a wider war is now very real. Where we're going, that depends on diplomacy, restraint, and perhaps a little luck. Peace is still possible, but so is something far worse. What happens next could redefine not just the future of the Middle East, but the global nuclear order itself. You've been watching Nexus-Feed Deep Dive. Subscribe to the channel as we chart every twist in Iran's race against the clock. Don't forget to add your voice in the comments section too. So, will the U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear sites force Iran to the negotiating table and encourage a lasting peace in the Middle East, or will Iran dig in deeper? Until our next one, stay curious, stay critical, and keep safe.